They invited Simone as a joke, a public joke, but the moment she walked in, the room went quiet. And when the screen played, their perfect life fell apart in real time. Before we begin, tell me where you are watching from. Drop your city or state in the comments, and if you are here for stories about dignity, fairness, and real accountability, like the video and subscribe. Now, back to Simone. The first time Simone realized she had become invisible, it was not because someone insulted her. It was because nobody spoke to her at all. She was polishing the glass doors in the east lobby of Sterling Heights Tower, where the marble floors looked like water and the air always smelled like money and citrus. Suits passed by in a fast blur. People laughed at jokes that were not funny. People complained about traffic while holding coffees that cost more than Simone's lunch for 2 days. 2 men stepped into the lift behind her, voices low, confident, careless. "She will sign it," one said. "She has no choice. We bury her with her own paperwork." The other one chuckled. "And if she does not? We make her disappear, like the last one." They pressed the lift button. The doors closed. Their conversation vanished. Their cologne lingered. Simone's cloth stopped moving. Her chest went tight for a moment. Not fear, not exactly. Recognition. Because there were phrases you never forgot when you had lived through them. Make her disappear, like the last one. Simone looked at her reflection in the glass. A woman in a navy cleaning uniform, hair pulled back, no jewelry, no noise. 41 years old, shoulders steady, posture straight, eyes tired but alert. She looked like nobody. That was the point. When people decided you were nobody, they spoke like you could not hear. They behaved like you could not understand. They did things they would never do in front of someone they respected. That was Sterling Heights, the company behind the city's biggest redevelopment projects, the company that hosted charity galas and posted glossy videos about community uplift, the company that got applauded at banquets and praised in newspapers, and at the center of it all was the CEO, Calvin Sterling. Tall, polished, smiling in every photo, a man who could shake your hand, look you in the eye, and make you feel like you were lucky just to be in his presence. And on his arm, always, was his wife, Brielle Sterling. Brielle was a different kind of power, the kind that did not need facts, only attention. She was the face of the brand, the voice of the charity, the woman who walked through rooms like she was doing the room a favor. Her shoes never touched the ground quietly. Her perfume arrived before she did. Her smile was bright, but it never reached her eyes. She did not see Simone as a person. She saw Simone as a function, like a bin, like a mop, like a sign that said, "Caution, wet floor." And Brielle had a habit. She liked to test people, not to build them, to break them. It started small. A comment as Simone cleaned near the executive lounge. "Do you mind not breathing so loud in here?" Brielle said once without looking up from her phone. Simone had paused. Not because she was hurt, because she was measuring who Brielle was, measuring what Brielle thought she could do. Simone lowered her eyes and simply said, "Of course," because bills did not care about pride, and survival was not the same as surrender. But over time, Brielle's cruelty became a hobby, a sport. She would pass Simone in the corridor, glance at the name badge on Simone's chest, and smile like she was reading a joke. "One day you'll thank me for employing you," Brielle said, sweet as syrup. "We are basically feeding you." Feeding you. Like Simone was a stray cat behind a restaurant. Simone used to go home and sit in her small kitchen with the radio low and the lights off, just breathing through it. She would press her palms to her eyes until the sting passed. Not because Brielle was powerful, because Brielle was careless, and careless people left trails. That was the first button, the first shift. Simone did not want revenge. She wanted the truth. And she had learnt something the hard way. The truth did not move until you gave it a stage. Sterling Heights was about to give her the biggest stage of all. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that feels like a Monday. Simone was emptying bins in the executive boardroom after a private meeting. She moved quietly, as she always did, making herself small in the corners, leaving the room spotless, leaving no trace that she had ever been there. The door opened behind her. Brielle walked in with two women dressed like they had never carried anything heavier than a designer bag. They paused like they had stepped into a museum and spotted something unpleasant. Brielle's eyes landed on Simone. Then her smile formed. Not a normal smile. Not a greeting. A smile that meant she had an idea. "Simone," Brielle said, stretching the name like it was a toy. Simone kept her voice polite. "Good afternoon." Brielle stepped closer, holding a thick envelope. Cream paper, gold seal, heavy card. The kind of invitation that made people straighten their backs just by looking at it. Brielle waved it slightly, as if fanning herself with importance. "You're going to love this," she said. One of her friends covered her mouth, trying to hide a laugh. Simone's instincts sharpened. Brielle offered the envelope with 2 fingers, like she was passing something dirty. "You are invited," Brielle said, voice bright, "to our vow renewal. Calvin and I are renewing our vows at Magnolia House. It's a charity gala, too. Cameras, press, all of it." Simone's hands took the envelope carefully. The card was thick. The seal was real. Simone looked at Brielle. "That is unexpected." Brielle's eyes glittered. "Is it? Well, I have been thinking. You see us every day, cleaning up after us. You should see how we celebrate. It might inspire you." Her friends giggled. Brielle leaned in slightly, lowering her voice like she was being kind. "It's black tie, so do not come in your uniform. We do not want you confusing the guests or the staff." Another laugh, sharper. Simone's fingers tightened around the envelope. Brielle straightened, satisfied, as if she had just placed a trap and watched it snap shut. "Oh," Brielle added, turning away, "and bring your best smile. People love a good underdog story." They walked out, laughter trailing behind them like perfume. Simone stood alone in the boardroom, staring at the envelope. Her heart did not race. It slowed. Because she understood the plan. Brielle wanted her there, not to honor her but to display her, to point and whisper, to film, to post, to turn Simone into content. And Simone knew something else. Magnolia House was not just a venue. It was a stage built for people like Brielle, white drapery, crystal lights in the trees, a fountain lit from below, a long white carpet walkway for arrivals, a place designed to make ordinary people feel small. Simone turned the invitation over. The details were printed in crisp lettering. Magnolia House, Saturday, 5 p.m. Dress code, black tie, live stream, sterling vows, sterling gives. That last part made her stomach turn. Sterling Gives. Because Sterling Gives was the charity arm that Brielle ran, and it was the reason Sterling Heights got praised by the city. Scholarships, youth programs, food drives. And Simone knew what nobody else knew. Sterling Gives was dirty. Not in a messy way, in a calculated way. The kind of dirty that wears gloves. Simone put the invitation into her pocket like she was pocketing a weapon. That night she went home and did not eat. She sat at her kitchen table with her phone face down and the invitation open in front of her. Her flat was small, quiet, a kettle that clicked on and off, a single photo on the wall of her son, Elijah, grinning with a gap in his teeth, taken years ago before life got hard. Simone touched the edge of the card. Black tie, cameras, press, live stream. She could imagine it now. Brielle gliding up to her with a microphone and a fake smile. "So tell us, Simone, how does it feel to be here tonight?" Simone could hear the laughter, and for a moment the old reflex rose up. Hide, decline, avoid, because pain you avoided could not hit you. But then another thought landed, heavy and steady. If she did not go, Brielle would still win. Brielle would laugh with her friends about how Simone knew her place, and Sterling Gives would continue to steal. And people like Simone would continue to be crushed quietly. Simone stood up. She walked to the hallway cupboard and pulled out a plain plastic storage box. Inside it was not jewelry, not money, not memories. Inside were documents, Printouts, screenshots, a small USB drive taped to the underside of the lid, a second USB drive hidden inside an old sock because Simone had learnt not to trust one hiding place. She sat back down and opened her laptop. The screen glowed against her face. She typed in a password. A folder opened. On it was a name. Backup. Inside were files with dates, names, and one particular video clip labeled in a way that made her jaw tighten. Gala Reel Replacement. Simone stared at it. She did not create it for fun. She created it because someone tried to wipe the original file that proved everything, and Simone had duplicated it anyway. That was the next button, the next shift. This was not about a dress. This was about a moment where the truth could not be managed. Simone picked up her phone and scrolled to a contact she had not called in years. Janice Ward. The name alone made her throat tighten. Janice was the one person who knew Simone's real story, not the cleaner story, the full story. Simone pressed call. It rang once, twice. Then a voice, older now but still firm. "Hello?" Simone swallowed. "Janice, it's Simone." Silence, then a sharp inhale. "Oh my word," Janice said quietly. "Simone? Is it really you?" Simone's voice cracked despite her efforts. "It's me. I need you." Janice did not ask why. She did not ask what happened. She did not ask questions that could be answered later. She only said, "Tell me where you are." The next morning, a car pulled up outside Simone's building. Not a flashy car, a practical one. But it was clean, and it had presence. Janice stepped out. She looked like someone who had rebuilt herself from ash. Gray streaks in her hair, but her posture was iron. A tailored blazer, sensible heels, and eyes that had seen too much and still refused to blink. She hugged Simone hard, like she was stitching something back together. "Look at you," Janice whispered, still standing. Simone's voice was small. "Barely." Janice pulled back, held Simone's shoulders, and looked her in the face. "Listen to me," she said. "You did not call me because you are barely standing. You called me because you are ready." Simone led her inside. They sat at the table. Simone opened the storage box. Janice's eyes moved over the documents, the screenshots, the bank transfers. Her face changed. Not shock, not confusion, anger, controlled anger. "They have been doing this for years," Janice said, voice low. Simone nodded. "And they tried to erase it." Janice looked at the USB drives. "And you duplicated it." Simone's mouth tightened. "I learned." Janice leaned back slowly, as if seeing the shape of the whole thing. "Tell me the part you have not told anyone," Janice said. Simone hesitated. Then she spoke. Years ago, before she wore a cleaning uniform, Simone worked in compliance. She was good at it. Not because she loved rules, but because she understood people. She understood what they tried to hide. Sterling Heights recruited her after she exposed fraud at a smaller firm. They praised her. They called her brilliant. They said she would rise fast. Calvin Sterling himself shook her hand and said, "We need people like you." For a while, Simone believed it. Then she found the first irregularity in Sterling Gives, small at first, a donation that moved through too many accounts, a vendor invoice that looked inflated, a consulting fee paid to a company that did not exist. Simone flagged it quietly, professionally. She expected an internal review. Instead, she got a meeting, a closed door, a friendly smile, a warning dressed up as advice. "Do not dig where you are not invited," her manager said. "You will damage the brand." Simone did not stop. Because she had grown up watching her mother stretch pennies and still donate to church drives, because she knew what those charity funds meant to real families, because she had integrity, the kind you carried even when it cost you. So she kept going. And then, one afternoon, she opened her system and saw it. A folder titled Project Halo. Inside were spreadsheets that made her blood run cold, donations diverted, scholarship funds rerouted, contracts awarded to friends. And in the notes column, next to one transaction, was a line that still haunted her. Use the gala footage. People love a good story. Simone took screenshots. She downloaded what she could. She planned to report it. Then the trap closed. One morning she arrived at work and security met her at the door. She was told she was under investigation for misuse of confidential information. Her access was revoked. Her laptop was seized. Her name was smeared. Rumors spread quickly because Sterling Heights knew how to control a narrative. Simone was fired, and worse, she was blacklisted. Every job she applied for vanished the moment they checked her history. Then her life collapsed in slow motion. Rent overdue, bills stacking, a sick child, a mother's funeral she could barely afford. And in the middle of all that, a cleaning contractor offered her work. Not because they respected her, because they did not ask questions. Simone took it. She became invisible on purpose, and she went back into the building that broke her, not to beg, to watch, to collect, to wait. Janice listened without interrupting, jaw tight. When Simone finished, Janice held her gaze. "They did not just fire you," Janice said. "They tried to erase you." Simone nodded. "And now Brielle wants to humiliate me on camera." Janice's eyes sharpened. "Then we are going to give them a show," she said. Simone exhaled slowly. "I do not want to look petty." Janice leaned forward. "This is not petty. This is accountability." They planned in layers, not just clothes, not just hair. A plan that could survive interference. Janice called in one more person. A young man named Theo, a quiet IT contractor who had worked at Sterling Heights before and left suddenly. Theo arrived with a backpack and careful eyes. He looked at the USB drive and nodded once. "This file will play," he said, "if we get a clean connection." Simone's pulse thudded. "What do you mean, clean?" Theo's mouth tightened. "Sterling Heights will have their own tech team. If they suspect anything, they will lock down the screen." Janice said, "Then we do not ask permission." Theo looked at Simone. "Do you have the original?" Simone's voice was steady. "No, they tried to wipe it. I only have what I saved." Theo nodded slowly. "That is enough." They did not rush. They prepared like this was surgery. Simone would arrive calm, proper, unshakable. Theo would be inside early, disguised as part of the AV crew. Janice would be seated near donors, ready to speak to the right people. And Simone would carry one thing that mattered more than anything else. A second backup. Not on a USB, on a secure cloud link set to autosend if the file was blocked. Simone had learnt the hard way. If you only had one path, they could stop you. If you had three, they could panic. And panic made people sloppy. Another button, another shift. Saturday arrived bright and cold, the kind of day that looked perfect in photos. Magnolia House stood like a dream, white columns and hanging lights, a long driveway lined with flags that read, "Sterling Gives." Valets moved like dancers, cameras hovered like birds, guests arrived in waves, tuxedos, gowns, laughter, people posing, smiling, holding champagne. A live stream camera on a gimbal moved through the crowd, catching moments for social media. Brielle stood near the entrance, radiant, rehearsed. Her dress was ivory, fitted, glittering. Her hair was perfect, her smile wide, practiced. Calvin stood beside her, hand on her back, looking like a man who owned the air. He smiled for cameras, but his eyes were sharp. He was scanning, measuring. They moved to the main courtyard where the stage was set. An enormous LED screen stood behind the Vows platform, ready to play their highlight reel. A banner read, "A love that gives back." Simone saw it later and almost laughed at the audacity, but right then, in the moment, she was not at the venue yet. She was in Janice's car, sitting quietly, listening to her own breathing. Janice glanced at her. "You ready?" Janice asked. Simone looked out the window. "I'm not here to punish," Simone said. "I'm here to stop them." Janice nodded. "That is the right energy." They turned into the driveway. Simone's heart did not race, it grounded, because fear would make her small, and she refused to be small. The car rolled to a stop near the arrivals carpet. A staff member approached, then paused. because the person stepping out did not match the story they had written in their heads. Simone's heels touched the ground first, simple, elegant, quiet, then her dress, black, clean lines, not loud but impossible to ignore. A soft sheen that caught the light when she moved. Her hair was styled neatly, pulled back into a low twist that framed her face without trying too hard. A single necklace at her throat, modest but chosen. She stepped fully out of the car and stood upright, like someone who belonged anywhere she decided to stand. The staff member blinked. "Good evening, ma'am," Simone nodded politely. "Good evening." Janice stepped out behind her, equally composed. Simone walked forward, and the first silence hit, not because she looked rich, because she looked sure. People looked up from their conversations, eyes turned, phones lifted, whispers began. "Who is that? Is she a donor?" "I've not seen her before." Simone walked like she had no interest in their approval. She passed the champagne fountain, she passed the floral arch. She reached the edge of the main courtyard where Brielle stood, still smiling for the camera. Brielle's eyes flicked towards her, and for half a second her smile cracked, not fully, just enough, like a mask slipping. Brielle took a step forward, camera crew hovering, live stream rolling. "Oh," Brielle said, voice bright, too bright. "Simone, you came." Simone met her gaze calmly. "You invited me." Brielle's laugh was thin. "Well, yes, I did not expect you to. Well, you look." Brielle's eyes scanned Simone's dress, searching for something to mock, finding nothing. Simone smiled softly. "Appropriate?" Brielle's cheeks tightened. The camera hovered closer. Brielle recovered quickly, because she was trained for optics. "This is lovely," Brielle said, turning slightly towards the lens. "We believe in inclusivity here. Everyone matters, even the people who," she paused, smile still fixed, "who keep things running." Simone's eyes did not move. A beat. The slightest shift in Simone's expression, not anger, a warning. Simone leaned closer, voice low enough that only Brielle heard. "Be careful," Simone said quietly. "When you invite someone to laugh at them, you might end up laughing alone." Brielle's smile froze. Then she laughed louder, as if volume could erase discomfort. "Oh, Simone, you are funny." She turned away, already signaling to her friends with her eyes. Simone watched Brielle glide back to her circle of perfect people. And then Simone did something Brielle did not expect. Simone did not hover awkwardly. She did not look lost. She moved with purpose. She walked towards the donor section, where Janice had already positioned herself. The next button landed. Because a man in a gray suit stood up as Simone approached. He stared at her as if his eyes had just remembered something they had forgotten. His glass lowered slowly. "Simone," he said, voice shaking slightly. Simone paused. She studied him. Then recognition clicked. "Mr. Halpern," Simone said gently. The man's face changed. "My word, it is you, Simone Carter." Whispers rippled. Simone Carter, not Simone the cleaner. Mr. Halpern turned to the people near him, voice rising. "This woman," he said, "this woman saved Sterling Gives from collapse in its first year. She built the compliance framework. She protected our donors. She was brilliant." Brielle's head snapped around. Calvin's eyes narrowed. Simone held still, letting the moment breathe. Mr. Halpern stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They told us you resigned," he whispered. "They said you were unstable." Simone's mouth tightened. "They lied." Mr. Halpern swallowed. "Where have you been?" Simone looked him in the eye. "In the building," she said softly, "cleaning up after the people who erased me." Mr. Halpern looked like he had been slapped, and in the distance Brielle's face began to drain of color. Now Brielle was watching with a new kind of fear, not social fear, consequences fear. Brielle moved quickly, heels sharp, bouquet in hand like a weapon. She approached Simone with the smile still on, but the panic leaking through the edges. "Simone," Brielle said, voice tight, "enjoy the evening, yes? But do not cause confusion." Simone's tone was calm. "Confusion is what happens when lies are forced to stand up." Brielle's eyes flashed. "This is my night." Simone nodded slowly. "That is why you chose it." Brielle's lips parted. For a moment she looked genuinely uncertain. Then she did what she always did. She tried to control. She turned to a security guard and murmured something. The guard stepped forward, posture stiff. "Ma'am," he said to Simone, "could I have a word with you?" Simone looked at him. "About what?" The guard hesitated because there was no reason. Brielle smiled. "Just a small check. Procedures." Procedures. The word that always meant you do not belong. Simone's expression softened, almost kind. "Of course," Simone said, "but we can do it here, in front of everyone, since we are filming." Brielle's smile twitched. The guard looked uncomfortable. Calvin began walking towards them, slow and controlled, like a man approaching a problem he planned to remove. The music shifted to something more dramatic as the MC stepped onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC boomed, "welcome to Sterling Vows, Sterling Gives. Tonight we celebrate love and we celebrate impact." Applause erupted. Calvin and Brielle moved towards the platform, cameras ready. Brielle glanced back at Simone one more time. Her eyes said it clearly. "Do not ruin this." Simone's eyes replied without words. "You already did." They began the ceremony. Calvin spoke about love, about partnership, about community. Brielle dabbed at her eyes dramatically, as if the cameras needed tears. Guests clapped at the rehearsed lines. Donors smiled. The live stream comments would be full of hearts and applause emojis. And then the moment came for the highlight reel. The MC turned towards the screen. "And now," he said, "a look at the journey of Calvin and Brielle Sterling and the work of Sterling Gives." The lights dimmed. The crowd settled. Brielle's smile relaxed finally. This was her favorite part, her story on a screen. Theo, dressed in black like a V-staff, stood near the back, head slightly bowed, fingers moving discreetly on a small device. Simone sat still, hands folded, calm as a judge. The screen flickered. Brielle expected soft music, old photos, charity shots. Instead, the screen played something else, a boardroom, a hidden camera angle. Calvin's voice, clear as day, saying, "Move the funds through Halo. Nobody will notice. They never read past the headline." A sharp inhale spread through the crowd. The video continued. Brielle's voice laughing, saying, "They will clap for anything if we put poor kids in the background. People are so easy." Gasps. The camera cut to a second clip. Brielle, speaking to someone off-screen, voice dripping with contempt. "And that cleaner, Simone, she thinks she is smart. She is not. We ruined her. We can ruin anyone." The courtyard erupted in sound. "What is this?" "Turn it off." "Is that real?" Brielle's face went white. Calvin spun towards the AV crew, rage flashing. "Shut it down!" he hissed. The screen kept playing. Now, a spreadsheet filled the display. Huge, impossible to ignore. Donation amounts, account numbers, vendor names, a highlighted line, consulting fee, another highlighted line, private transfer, a third line, bonus payout. The crowd could not pretend now. This was not gossip. This was evidence. The MC stumbled backwards, microphone still live. "This is not part of the program," he whispered. But the program had changed. Brielle screamed, "Stop it!" Security moved towards the screen. Theo stepped back calmly, already disappearing into the crowd. Simone did not move. She simply stood up, slow, steady, and the next button hit like thunder, because Janice walked onto the aisle and lifted her phone, camera on, streaming her own angle, voice loud enough to carry. "Do not touch that screen," Janice said. "If you do, every donor here will know you tried to destroy evidence." People turned, phones lifted higher. Brielle looked like she might collapse. Calvin's jaw flexed. He stepped forward, trying to regain control. "Ladies and gentlemen," Calvin said loudly, forcing his CEO voice into place, "this is a malicious attack. Someone is attempting to sabotage our charity work." Simone walked forward, not rushing, not shaking. She stopped in the center under the hanging lights, the screen behind her still showing the truth. Simone's voice was calm, but it carried. "No," Simone said, "this is not sabotage. This is consequence." Calvin's eyes narrowed. "Who are you to stand here and accuse us?" Simone looked at him for a long beat. Then she said the words that split the room. "I am the person you framed." A hush fell. Simone turned slightly, addressing the crowd, not begging, not pleading. Years of silence behind her. "Some of you may remember my name," Simone said. "Simone Carter, compliance, sterling gives, the person who built the guardrails you bragged about." Mr. Halpern stood again, face tight with shame. Simone continued. "When I discovered irregularities, I reported them, and the response was not an investigation, it was retaliation." Brielle's mouth opened. "That is not true." Simone looked at her. "Your voice is on the screen." Brielle's eyes flickered towards the crowd, searching for sympathy, finding none. Simone turned back to the audience. "They told you I resigned. They told you I was unstable. They told you I was untrustworthy." Simone's voice lowered. "They did that so you would not believe me." The screen changed again. A new clip. A HR meeting. A man's voice saying, "We will write it as misconduct. Make it stick. She is a black woman. People already assume the worst." A collective sound rose from the crowd. Disgust, shock, anger. Brielle staggered as if the floor moved beneath her. Calvin's face hardened, but his eyes now held fear. Not fear of Simone. Fear of what this could become. A woman in the donor section spoke loudly. "My scholarship fund," she said, voice shaking. "Are you telling me my money did not go to the children?" Simone looked at her gently. "I am telling you," Simone said, "that some of it did. Enough to keep the story alive, enough to keep you clapping, and the rest went into pockets." Calvin raised his hands. "This is ridiculous." Simone nodded. "Then you will not mind an audit." Silence. Calvin's eyes flickered. Simone continued, measured. "They tried to delete this file. They tried to wipe the evidence, but I duplicated it." She let the word sit. Duplicated it. The crowd understood what that meant. This was not a mistake. This was a cover-up. Brielle's voice rose, sharp and desperate. "It was a joke," Brielle cried. "The invitation was a joke. She is doing this because she is bitter." Simone turned to Brielle slowly. Her expression was not cruel. It was clear. "You invited me to humiliate me," Simone said, "and you did not even check what kind of woman you were inviting." Brielle's eyes flashed with hate. "You are nothing." Simone's voice did not change. "That is the problem," Simone said. "You believed that." And then came the bigger beat, the one that landed like a door slamming, because a man in a dark suit stepped forward, a city investigator, or a state attorney's representative, the kind of person who did not attend galas for fun. He held up a badge. "My name is Daniel Reyes," he said, "Office of the Inspector General. We received an anonymous package 48 hours ago." Brielle's breath caught. Calvin's face tightened. Reyes looked toward Simone. And after seeing this footage," Reyes said, "we are not leaving here empty-handed." Security froze. Donors began shouting questions. Reporters pushed closer. Phones recorded everything. The live stream comments, once full of hearts, would now be full of fury. Calvin stepped down from the platform, attempting to pull Brielle away from the center. Brielle's composure shattered. She grabbed Calvin's arm and hissed, fix it now." Calvin's eyes snapped to her, voice low, venomous. "You did this," he said through clenched teeth. "You and your little joke." Brielle looked stunned, like she expected loyalty. Calvin did not give it, because men like Calvin were loyal only to power, and power was slipping. Simone watched them, not with glee, but with something heavier. Release. The crowd shifted around her, like a tide changing direction. People who had been ignoring staff all night were suddenly looking at them, really looking. Catering workers, valets, cleaners, security, people who kept these rich performances running. A woman in a gown approached Simone, tears in her eyes. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I laughed when she said you were invited as entertainment." Simone's voice was soft. "You're not apologizing to me. You're apologizing to the part of you that knew it was wrong." The woman lowered her head, sobbing. Another donor spoke up. "We need to freeze accounts," he said. "We need to stop every transfer tonight." Mr. Halpern stepped forward, shaking. "As a board member," he said, voice thick, "I'm calling an emergency session, immediately." Calvin's head snapped around. "You cannot do that." Mr. Halpern met his gaze. "Watch me." Brielle looked around wildly, realizing the room was no longer hers. The crowd had turned, not because Simone looked stunning, because Simone had truth, and truth does not care about chandeliers. Brielle suddenly pushed through people, clutching her dress, stumbling, running. She fled the courtyard, slipping past the camera crew, disappearing into the side gardens. Some guests moved to follow, but Reyes raised a hand. "Let her run," he said. "We will find her." Calvin stood frozen for a second, then tried to recover. He turned toward the crowd, forcing a smile that looked like pain. "Everyone," he began, "let us not jump to conclusions. This is a misunderstanding." Simone's eyes lifted slightly. "Calvin," Simone said, calm as still water, "you built your life on the idea that people would rather be entertained than informed." She gestured towards the screen. "But tonight, the entertainment is over." Calvin's lips tightened. Simone continued, voice steady. "You do not get to wrap greed in charity and call it love." The crowd erupted in applause, not polite applause, the kind that sounded like a verdict. Simone stepped back slowly as Reyes and other officials moved forward, speaking to board members, requesting access, collecting names. Cameras zoomed, microphones appeared. A reporter shouted, "Ms. Carter, did you plan this?" Simone's answer was simple. "I plan to survive," she said, "and I plan to tell the truth." Janice stood near the exit, watching, arms folded, a small, proud smile on her face. Simone walked towards her, feeling the air shift as people moved out of her way, not because she was small, because they finally saw her. At the gate, Simone paused and looked back. Magnolia House still glittered. The lights were still beautiful. But now, the beauty looked hollow. A set. A performance. Simone breathed out slowly. Janice spoke softly beside her. "Was it enough?" Simone's eyes stayed on the venue. "No," Simone said quietly. "It is the beginning." They stepped into the car. As they pulled away, Simone's phone buzzed. One message, unknown number, a single line. "You think Brielle was the problem? Check the deleted folder called Orchard. Ask yourself who ordered the wipe." Simone stared at the words. Her fingers went cold. Janice glanced at her. "What is it?" Janice asked. Simone swallowed. "A part they did not want me to see," Simone said. Janice's jaw tightened. "And now?" Janice asked. Simone looked out at the city lights. Now she understood something clearly. Brielle was cruelty. Calvin was greed. But there was always someone behind the curtain, someone who did not attend the gala, someone who signed the orders, someone who made people disappear. Simone's voice was quiet, but firm. "Now," Simone said, "we find out who else is in that folder." The car moved through the night, streetlights sliding across Simone's face like passing thoughts. And for the first time in years, she did not feel invisible. She felt dangerous in the right way, not because she wanted to harm anyone, because she was done carrying silence for people who never deserved it. If this story hit something in you, if it reminded you that dignity is not given by money and fairness matters and real accountability is still worth fighting for, then stay with us. Subscribe and comment where you are watching from. Because the next chapter is not about a gala, it is about the machine behind it.